In this episode, we're going to identify 6 essential categories of wine you'll need to have for a successful wine collection. By the end of this video, you'll be prepared for any occasions, whether it's a casual meal, friends and family coming over, outdoor grilling, a formal dinner party, or any number of holidays on your holiday calendar. By the way, at any time, if you like what you hear, click like and consider subscribing. Are you ready for the 6 categories? Number 1, keep on hand the basic grape varietals. The basic grape varietals of wine which you want are, for the whites, Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, and Pinot Grigio. Now for the reds, you have Cabernet Sauvignon and Pinot Noir. Category number 2 is the remaining noble grapes. Now there are 18 noble grapes. 9 of them are white and 9 of them are red. Now I say remaining noble grapes because the 5 varietals we identified in our first category are actually all noble grapes. So in addition to those, for the whites, the noble grapes we still need are listed here. For the reds, you need these. The third category is classic Old World wines. Now these are traditional and timeless wines. You want to dedicate some space for these varietals from the Old World. Remember, Old World wines, these are generally anything from Europe. They're traditionally blends, while New World wines, which would be anything from outside of Europe, have traditionally been produced with a single varietal. Now, although in recent years, many New World wines are producing blends. Several examples would include selections from France, such as some reds from Beaujolais, Bordeaux's selection from the Rhone River Valley, like the Châteauneuf-du-Pape and Syrahs. Also Burgundy's Pinot Noir and some wonderful reds from Italy. Some quick examples would be Sangiovese from Tuscany, Marani del Valpolicella, some Brunello, some Chianti, and a Barolo. A beautiful Tempranillo, Rioja Alta from Spain, and some Blaufränkisch from Austria. As we jump over to the whites, we've got phenomenal wines from Bordeaux. White blends, Sauternes, and Semillon. Burgundy has Chardonnay and Chablis, which is a Chardonnay. The Loire Valley brings their fabulous Sauvignon Blanc plus Sancerre and several others. A couple of other buttes are from France, include Gewürztraminer from Alsace, France, and Picopoles. From Italy we find Pinot Grigios, Verdicchio, and Gave. Now out of Spain you can select from Priorates, Vino Verdes, and Verdejos. You've got Gruner Veltliners from Austria and Rieslings from Germany. See, as you can see, you can select from a ton of world-class classic wines. If you want to get a better handle on the Old World versus the New World thing, you might want to check out my video, How to Tell the Difference Between Old World versus New World Wines. Oh, wow, we've covered a lot in a short amount of time. Has this information been helpful? If it is, please let me know, or just write Asti in the comments below. Now, category number 4 we might call the New World modern options, or maybe seem better as just plain modern options. The wines that we have in this category will be a complement to the Old World classics we had in category number 3. These are the go-to wines that virtually everybody likes and expects. A good way to go about this is to focus on very particular areas of the world that are each known for very particular New World wines. Like Napa and its cabs. Chardonnays from the Russian River Valley. This is sort of nestled between Sonoma and Napa. You also have Pinot Noirs from Oregon's Willamette Valley. Marlborough, Australia's Sauvignon Blancs. Rosés from France. Malbecs from Argentina, and California's Zinfandels. Category number 5 we can call the comfy cozy wines. They're comfy cozy wines because everybody knows them and they're mass marketed. Virtually everybody is comfortable with them. You can cozy up with a book, or as you're catching up with your emails. Plus, you can get these things virtually anywhere. In a wine shop, in your local grocery store, on my website, virtually anywhere that sells above average wines. A couple of quick examples on the labels would be, for instance, Rodney Strong, Kim Crawford, Hess, Robert Mondavi's Selections, Kendall Jackson, Josh Sellers, Meiomi, Louis Jardot, Bonfi, Gilgal, and Chapoutier. This brings us to category 6, the final category, which we can call exploration wines. If you're one of the adventurous, creative, and daring winos, these wines are right up your alley. These are for people who are tired of the overdone, extremely popular, comfy, cozy wines. They're for the people who want to broaden their wine selection. These are the serendipities of life wines. You come across these as a recommendation from a friend, or you see their labels in the store, online, and it just strikes you. They seem to just jump off the shelf at you. These wines are really cool because you get all geeked up and passionate about them and tell your friends and have them over and they get all geeked up with you. Those are great wines and great finds. Part of the fun of those wines is that you get to be known by your friends for your interesting, unusual, and phenomenal wines. So let's just say you find yourself at a restaurant and there's a wine that you see on the menu, and you take a chance, order it, and you just love it. What you do is take a picture of the label and come by my site to see if you can find it. As you collect your wine, remember there's no one size fits all. How you mix all these together is purely your call. I've given you the guidelines. Now, pick and choose what's comfortable for you. Blend your palate and your pocketbook, and you'll do just fine. Have you ever seen someone in a restaurant pour wine into a decanter and you think, that's a little bit too much show for me? Or think, does it make that much difference? They're going to be drinking that wine in about 2 seconds. By the time you finish with this video, you'll understand the importance of decanting your wine and start maximizing your wine's aromas and flavors. We're going to look at number 1, what is decanting? 2, do you need to decant all your wines? Number 3, what is the best shape for a wine decanter? And number 4, we'll look at several types of decanters. Number 1, what is decanting? Decanting is centuries old. The Romans let their decanted wine sit out for hours, believing it brought out the wine's aromas and mellowed its harsh tannins. They were actually spot on. That's pretty much what it does. A decanting wine is essentially the process of pouring the contents from the bottle into another vessel, a decanter. Typically, the wine is then served from the decanter. Now, generally speaking, decanting serves 2 purposes. Number 1, it separates the wine from sediment that may have formed in the bottle. And number 2, it gets air or oxygen to the wine so its aromas and flavors will be more vibrant when it's served. Decanting accelerates the breathing process, which increases the wine's aromas and flavors that it gets from both the grapes and oak barrels. It also softens the taste of the tannins that cause harshness and astringency in young red wines. Now, to understand a little bit more about what I mean by breathing or the breathing process, check out my video, Letting Your Wine Breathe. Number 2, do you decant all wines? The simplest rule of thumb is decant wines that are red, old, and bold. To be fair, there really aren't many wines that get worse with decanting. As far as white wines are concerned, when white wines are vinified or produced in contact with their skins, then decanting may improve them the same way it improves many red wines. Any skin contact wines will benefit. Decanting softens their tannins. Also, to warm up a white wine coming straight out of the fridge, pour it into a room temperature decanter. Now, when it comes to wines in general, the rule of thumb that I mentioned earlier is the way to go. Both old and bold wines will benefit from decanting, but for different reasons. The reason for decanting old wine is to remove the juice from the sediment that has collected in the bottom over time. This is a good idea for reds 5 or 6 years old or older. To decant these aged reds, you've been storing it on its side, so what you want to do is you want to stand the bottle straight up for several hours or even a day before consumption. This lets the sediment fall to the bottom. When pouring your wine, pour your wine slowly into the decanter. Tilt the bottle and stop pouring when you see the sediment or cloudiness reach the shoulder or the neck. The sediment will get settled right here. These bottles are designed to do this. Now, to understand more about this, you might want to check out my video, Wine Bottles, the Big Three, Bordeaux, Burgundy, and Alsace. Now, don't try to pour past the sediment. You'll end up with a bunch of sediment in your glass, and that's not so good. With these older wines, older than 5 or 6 years old, once the juice is removed from the sediment, the decanting process is over and the wine is ready to drink. Now listen to this. This is really important. Don't leave your old wines out to breathe. This will shorten its consumption window. Now, for big, bold, young reds, the purpose of decanting is different. It's to introduce oxygen to the wine. When it comes in contact with oxygen, the aromas and flavors become stronger, making it easier to assess and enjoy. When you decant young, bold reds, pour the wine quickly. Let the wine get plenty of air mixed into it. Like this. You see how quickly I'm doing this? You're letting a lot of oxygen get in. The oxygen will cause tannins to soften up, making an aggressive wine much easier to drink after an hour or so with the air. I really recommend that you decant most young reds, especially bold varieties like Cabs, Syrah, and Nebbiolos. Now, some wines can be stored overnight in your decanter, but for older wines, if you don't finish them, you really need to return them to the bottle. Now, here's another rule of thumb regarding decanting your wines. If you start off with a good wine, decanting it takes it to very good. Decanting and letting it sit or rest takes it to great. And decanting it and letting it open up for an hour or so maximizes the flavors and your experience. How are you doing there? Are you getting a pretty good handle on this whole decanting thing? If you are, pause the video for a moment and let me know by writing Asti in the comments below. So number 3 is, what's the best shape for wine decanter? If your main goal is aeration, to get air to the wine, then a wide neck decanter is recommended. This will allow more oxygen to get into the decanter so that the wine aerates faster and more effectively. They're definitely easier to clean than thin neck versions. Wide neck decanters are the most popular and will work well with most wine drinkers. The size of the opening will obviously determine how much air and therefore oxygen is going to reach the wine, but that isn't the only measurement that counts. The size of the decanter bowl is very important. The bowl is the bottom part of the decanter where the wine sits. The more wine surface area there is, the more contact between the wine and the oxygen. The greater the surface area, the less time you'll need to decant your wine. Number 4, types of wine decanters. I'm going to show you very quickly a wide variety of different kinds of decanters. You'll see 2 different things as you look at the different decanters. Number 1 is the form versus number 2, the function. Said another way, do you want your decanter to look really cool, or do you want it to be effective and work well? As we look at them, you want to apply the 2 principles that we looked at earlier. Number 1, broad opening, and number 2, large bowl. You'll see these initial decanters are much more functional. They're more traditional decanters. They have the wider openings and broader bowls. Some of the very broad bowl decanters that we see here can be very awkward. You almost have to turn the decanter upside down to get the last glass of wine out of it. I don't care for those very much, but they're very effective. Now these are more modern contemporary decanters. You'll also find decanters of every shape, form, and size. If a piece of glass can be blown and formed in a way to hold liquid, it could end up being a decanter. Now that's not to say that it would be a functional decanter, but it could be a decanter. Some of these more modern shapes are very popular and make a visual statement as you serve your wine. So we just saw a very small sampling of some decanters to give you an idea of what's out there. Let me show you what I do. My lifestyle is a little bit more casual, yet I want to be able to maximize the aromas and flavors of my wine. Even though I have a more traditional decanter, I tend to like the French and Italian country motif. When decanting my wine for dinner or just getting together with friends, I'll use a broad mouth, broad bowl pitcher. For me, it's all about allowing the wine to maximize its aromas and flavors, but still have something that visually expresses my personality. As far as cleaning your decanters, they're all relatively easy to clean. Some are actually easier than others. You definitely want to check out my video, How to Care for Your Wine Decanter. Now, getting the most out of our wine is really not rocket science. Drinking wine is enjoyable and can be a lot of fun, but I really believe there's a handful of things, really simple things, that we can do that will make it even more enjoyable. Once you know what these mistakes are, you'll see how simple it will be to remedy them. Most of us don't have enough cabinet space to have all the right glasses for all the different wines we drink. The solution is, don't worry about it. If you want to taste all the nuances in your glass of wine, the exact right glass can make a difference. But to simplify things, you might want to just keep on hand red wine glasses, white wine glasses, and champagne flutes. Red wine glasses are designed with bigger bowls, so more wine can be in contact with the air and allow it to open up. White wine glasses are narrower and keep the aromas and flavors more focused. The flutes also keep the bubbles and flavors confined and focused. That's good. By the way, with your different glasses, you want to hold your champagne glasses or flutes and your white wine glasses by the stems. It's okay to cradle your red wine glasses to allow the warmth of your hand to open up the red wine. You see how I'm doing this? Now, for more about wine glasses, check out my video. It'll be available at the end of this episode. Pair wine with the right foods. I have more in-depth video on this particular topic, which you can watch by clicking here. For now, I'll just focus on cheese because many people think it's the quintessential thing to do for a romantic occasion or a wine tasting, red wine plus cheese. But the fact of the matter is, it doesn't do justice to either the wine or the cheese, especially with reds. If you really love both your wine and your cheese, think about this. Cheese can have a lot of acidity, particularly goat and sheep cheese. Oh yeah, and hard cheeses also. Now, when you match those cheeses, which does not have the same acidity as a red wine, particularly big reds, those have quite a bit of tannins and alcohol. What's going to happen is the differentiation between acidity and tannins and alcohol levels are all going to clash. It's going to dry out your wine, and it's going to completely dry out your cheese. It's not a perfect match. Now the main reason cheese is so popular with red wine is because if you're not a big red or big gigantic tannic red wine drinker, then the cheese will soften the wine's tannins. This is like adding cream or milk to your tea or your coffee. That neutralizes the harsh tannins in the coffee and especially your tea. So if you're at a party or a restaurant and all they're serving is big tannic red wines, then actually shame on them, but go ahead and grab a piece of cheese. Hey Posse, thanks so much for investing the time to watch this video. I trust it was helpful to you. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. And please consider hitting subscribe. Also, click here to check out our new online shop. We have a great lineup of wine-related items that will help you get the most out of your wine experience. Oh, and be sure to check out these other videos. Until next time, cheers.